Typically kids will start working part-time around age 16. But what about when they're younger than that? What about 8-year-olds who act in movies? What about kids mowing the lawn around your house? Let's look at the actual child labor laws, and we're going to talk about 12 jobs that are great for young kids. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world. We publish a new video every week. We always joke around with our kids about child labor, and then they get in on it too and tell us that they aren't slave labor and they aren't free child labor, and they tell us they're going to call people. And we joke about it all the time, but there are actual child labor laws, and I think a lot of people don't realize exactly what they are. I know I didn't. We want to instill grit and work ethic in our kids, and we do that through our actions and through doing things, and they will follow us when they see us do these things. But it's important that kids learn the value of hard work and to have a work ethic before they actually reach the job age. That's not meant to be their teacher. They should already know how to work at that time. So where do the child labor laws come from? They actually come from the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, or FLSA. There are some exceptions according to state laws and the type of jobs being worked, but that's typically where the child labor laws come from when people talk about child labor laws in the United States. First, we'll talk about the laws for kids under 14 years old. Tweens, preteens, and barely teens, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, they can perform jobs around the house without you having to worry about the police or a SWAT team busting in the door like the Kool-Aid Man. In fact, there's no law against kids doing basic chores at home or work around the house at any age. The law leaves it up to the parents to decide what they think is a reasonable age. For example, we'll talk about number 1 of the 12 jobs is farming. Your kids can work on your farm as long as they're not doing any of the hazardous jobs that I can put a link to below. It's pretty obvious. If they're dealing with explosives or chemicals or something dangerous, if you think it's too dangerous, it's probably too dangerous. So that's how the law is outlined. But as long as they're doing basic farming, that's the first job. Whether you own a farm, whether you know someone with a farm, whether you go find someone with a farm, you can get your kids a job on a farm at a pretty young age. Yes, even at 12 years old. But if you own the farm, even younger, they can do it their whole life. If you're interested in seeing what those hazardous jobs actually are, I'm not going to read them all out here, but I will list them below. So as long as your 12 or 13-year-old isn't doing any of those jobs on the hazardous list, they can work on your farm or a family farm. It doesn't have to be your farm. But it doesn't end with farming. 12 and 13-year-olds can actually perform more jobs than just that. The second job would be casual, occasional, not full-time, babysitting. That's a good job for young kids. 12-year-old, 13-year-old, they can do that. Number 3 is newspaper delivery. It depends on the route. They can't work a full-time route and a full-time job. Obviously, they're not going to have a car to work some of the routes nowadays, but they can do newspaper delivery. This is especially, it makes sense in bigger cities when they can do things on their bicycle in a small area, as long as the area is safe. Number 4 is acting. They can act at virtually any age. My kids have been going through the Full House episodes recently that I've probably seen all of when I was a kid, and the Olsen twins are a prime example of kids acting at a really young age. Doesn't turn out the best always. I don't know what the rules are there, the statistics or whatever on kids acting, but it's an option. Number 5 is gathering evergreens and making wreaths, like Christmas wreaths. That's actually listed as a job 12 and 13-year-olds can do. I have no idea why. Maybe I gave you a new idea. Number 6 is working for their parents. Kids can work for their parents' business, their family business, whatever it is, as long as it's not mining or manufacturing or some sort of hazardous occupation. Kids working for you and for your company is actually one of the best ways to teach kids about hard work before they get out into the actual workforce. From the time I was 12 years old, I worked for my mom's restaurant, making pizzas, washing dishes. I learned a lot about work ethic. I learned a lot about the value of hard work. I bought a lot of Hot Wheels and football cards with that money, but the point is I learned to work, and I think it started because I started working at such a young age. Of course, summer vacations I would work a lot more. During the school year I wouldn't work much at all, maybe a night or two a week, maybe a weekend, but I was working from the age of 12, and I was an adult before I realized that it was legal that I was doing that. But the point is, I learned a lot about hard work and work ethic, and your kids can do that too, as long as it's your business. Now let's talk about laws for 16-year-olds. At 16, for the most part, your kids are able to work unlimited hours. I mean, they have unions and things like that, but in general they can work whatever hours they want to. I wouldn't let them go crazy with this. They do still have to worry about school at this point. And outside of a few exceptions, 16-year-olds have to be paid the federal minimum wage or whatever the state minimum wage is, wherever they're at. Kids under 20 are subject to a possible youth minimum wage. That's a thing. Comes out to about $4.25 an hour, but only for their first 90 days of employment, and then they have to go to the federal or the actual state minimum wage. And the clock starts over each time they switch jobs. So if they go to a different job every 90 days, they could stay at that $4.25. I don't know why you would try to do that, but that's how it works. There's a lot of great jobs for 16-year-olds. So if you want to find some good ones, the last 6 jobs we're going to talk about are for 16-year-olds and up. And these are just some great starter jobs. So number 7 is washing dishes, bussing tables, hosting, pretty much anything at a restaurant. Working at a restaurant is number 7. That's a great job, great entry level, teaches you a lot about hard work, gets you some free food sometimes. It's good for teens. Number 8, work at a retail store, just clothing store, whatever. It's usually pretty simple and straightforward. They teach you how to stock, they teach you how to deal with customers, you learn a little bit about sales, so that's helpful. Number 9, a library assistant. It's usually a pretty good paying job. It often comes with more benefits than a lot of jobs you'll find that you can get at 16 years old, so it's another option. Number 10 is lawn and gardening. I did this when I was a kid in the summer times, full time during the days. I would just be out there mowing and weed eating and everything else. It's a good job for kids. Number 11, you can be a senior citizen assistant. The seniors love that because they think back to their kids and their grandkids, and they have someone to come see them that's a young face. And oftentimes it helps kids see the elderly and to see the side of things that a lot of kids don't see if they don't have a grandparent or something there, where elderly people are in nursing homes and they have to be taken care of. And hopefully it would open the child's heart to caring for elderly people in general. Not that they have to go into that as a full-time career, but just it's good for them to see that side. Number 12, a hotel desk clerk. In the States, this is a pretty kind of low-paying entry-level job. It's good for kids. They don't have to do a whole lot. It's easy to learn. It teaches them to go to work. It teaches them the value of hard work and everything. In other countries, it actually is a much higher paying job, because I know I've been to several different countries where the person at the front desk speaks 4, 5, 6, 7 languages, and they have to be able to, because if you're in a big touristy city internationally, like Venice, Italy, or maybe Berlin, Germany, something like that, then you have to be able to speak multiple languages. But in the States, it's an entry-level job. That's just kind of a fun fact for you. Before I was 18, I know I'd wash dishes, I made pizzas, I did door hanging for a company for a little while. I delivered phone books. Remember phone books? I delivered newspapers. I did all kinds of jobs before I turned 18. And I think I probably worked way harder than I earned in all those years, because I earned minimum wage at most of those jobs or close to it. But I think it set the stage for me to become an adult and to have that work ethic carried out throughout my entire life. At 18 years old, kids are pretty much adults by child labor standards, and by every other standard, kids are adults at that point. So none of the child labor laws apply to them anymore. But in general, behind this whole thing, just remember that kids can work around the house, they can do chores, and no, that's not child labor. That's not going against child labor laws. They can work for you in the family business. So you might have to look into your state laws. They are a little bit different in some cases, but in general, farming, working for your business, things like that. Get kids involved, teach kids the value of hard work, and do it through actual jobs. You don't have to just pretend, so they can actually work from the age of 12, and in some cases younger. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world. We publish a new video every week. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, I have an entire chapter about kids and work in my book, Intentional Children, so I'll put a link to that below. That is all for today. I will see you next week.